Hello everyone and welcome to this week's video tutorial. This will be a new topic on a new opening system, the same direction cannons, rank chariot versus file chariot formation. Now the material in this series of videos is based on Grandmaster Zhang, Qiang and Master Wenqing's trilogy of books on opening theory, which is regarded as one of the best on the topic for the past few decades. Now, I'm honored to have obtained permission to use the material for this series of videos. Now, a short history into this opening. The same direction cannons, the rank chariot versus file chariot variation, it first appeared. One of the earliest appearance of this opening system was in The Secret in the Tangerine, an ancient manual that was published about 500 years from now, in the Ming Dynasty. In the first board, on the first few boards of the book, the same direction cannons, rank chariot versus file chariot variation was introduced. And the earliest opening trap still known to man came from that book and also used this variation. So without further ado, let us begin today's video tutorial. Central cannon, same direction cannon, and in this in the book, red will play R1 plus 1. Now, playing R1 plus 1 would ensure that red would be able to play the rank chariot variation no matter what. Because sometimes, if he played h2 plus 3, if black insisted on playing the rank chariot variation, it would not be advisable for red to play the rank chariot variation at this point in time. So, in this book, this was one way of guaranteeing that red would be able to play the rank chariot variation. Black would continue usually to play h8 plus 7. Now, for beginners, it would not be a good idea to capture the central pawn because red would defend, red would be forced to protect the cannon, and red would start trying to dislodge the central cannon. And after 6 plies, it is obvious that red would have mobilized 4 of his 6 major pieces and commanded all the important lines. So he would also have some defense already present, and this would be more than enough to compensate for the loss of the central pawn. But red would have made much better in the development of the pieces and have seized the initiative or controlled the initiative firmly in hand. So that is why c5 plus 4 to capture the pawn is not advocated. Now, it is common for both horses to be developed as proper horses in this manner. So this is the basic the position for discussion. Red would, the same direction cannons, red would develop his right chariot as a rank chariot, while black would develop his chariot as a file chariot. And it is almost mandatory for red to play r1 equals to 6. The main idea would be to advance the chariot and apply a lot of pressure on this flank. Now, in the past, r8 plus 6 was played. Now, there would be an old school counter, and from the way the opening system when evolutionized, it was found that r8 plus 6 was not advocated. Instead, the most commonly way of playing this opening system for black would be to use the riverbank chariot variation. This would offer a lot of protection from red's oncoming onslaught, and black would be able to fend red's attack nicely if he played correctly. And playing r8 plus 4 would also have the advantage of preventing red from going for the heavenly horse variation, etc. Now, red's left horse is also developed as a proper horse. Now, this is one of the more modern ways of playing this opening. In the past, h8 plus 9 was played, where the left horse was developed as a edge horse. Now, one of the advantages of playing this horse as a proper horse would be that red center would be fortified, and red would have more options because the horse would have more lines of development or better lines of development for play later on in the game as compared to if it were developed as an edge horse. Now, in the past, R8 plus R6 plus 7 was played as red would attempt to attack very rapidly. The main idea was to play R6 equals to 8 to apply a blockade on black's right flank and possibly gain material. However, this method of attack is no more present because black would not have to fear and still develop his horse as a proper horse. Now, if red threatened to capture the horse in this manner, black would simply play c2 plus 2. Red would not dare to capture the horse because if he did, the black cannon would now threaten to capture the chariot, and if it moved away, bam, check. The king cannot move, or this would be a checkmate. And black could recover lost material, have a cannon on the bottom rank that was attacking, and also gain an elephant in the process. Now it is very obvious that black would now have seized the initiative and then be on the attack. So that is why capturing the horse would not be possible. Some beginners might fear and develop his horse as an edge horse, which is also one of the older ways of playing this variation. But generally speaking, h2 plus 3 is recommended. So let's say to prevent c2 equals to 3, red played p7 plus 1. Black would simply retreat his horse to the centroid horse. Although this is not usually not advised, but in this situation it will be a good move. The reason for this is that, as can be seen, the red chariot had entered enemy territory alone and was now very susceptible to sneak attacks by black's cannon. So red developed his horse as a proper horse. Now black would now play c2 equals to 6 to threaten to retreat the cannon to capture the chariot, and also apply a fork over here, or a cannon pin over here to gain material. So either way, let's say if red moved his chariot again, he would have wasted too many moves, and this would result in an overall loss of development of the material. Black would have seized the initiative. So that is why R6 plus 7 is now seldom seen. Maybe in games played against beginners, but seldom seen in games played by the professionals. And h2 plus 3 is also advocated for the same reasons as red, developing both horses as proper horses. With this move, black will also fortify his center, and this is generally the recommended way of playing this position now. In this spot, one of the main themes would be the Rib File Chariot crossing the river. Now, this is one of the classical ways, or one of the common ways to attack in this situation. So, at this point in time, two major variations were discussed. The first would be c5 equals to 6, whereby red would dislodge his cannon, black would dislodge his cannon and adopt the sandwich horse defense formation. Another would be to play c2 plus 2. So let us begin with variation A. So in variation A, c5 equals to 6 was played. Now, by moving the cannon, black would have wasted one move. However, the argument for this is that the change in black's defensive formation will make it much harder for red to attack, and black will be compensated because red would have to spend another few moves trying to muster up a more efficient defense. So c5 equals to 6 is one of the ways of playing this opening at this point. Now, before we continue, one might wonder, would playing r8 equals to 3 to protect the pawn be a good idea? Because after all, the red chariot will be hemmed in. It will not have any good places to move. However, if this were done, red would simply sacrifice his pawn. And force the black chariot to capture it. And after sacrificing the pawn, this horse will now get development, and once the horse was freed, it will now be able to charge across the river to attack, and red would have the advantage. Now, in the past, another way of playing was to play e3 plus 1. Now, e3 plus 1, the main idea would be to develop this chariot as an elephant chariot to protect the horse, and possibly store up some potential along this file for attack later on. However, red will counter in this manner, c8 plus 2, threatening to capture the horse. That is why black will have to push the pawn forward, and after which red will double his attack on the central file. And as can be seen, black's formation is now scattered and uncoordinated, very prone to enemy attacks. Red could play r9 equals to 8 to develop his chariot as a file chariot. Now, this will place black in a predicament, because if he played r1 equals to 2, the red chariot will play r6 equals to 7. So this black chariot will be overloaded with defensive duties, and red would have a great time continuing to attack. So that is why out of the recommended c5 equals to 6 and c2 plus 2, these are the recommended variations nowadays. r8 equals to 3 is not recommended, and the old way of playing e3 plus 1 has also been more or less run down by evolution. So back to our main line, c5 plus 6, c5 equals to 6. And since black dislodged his central cannon, the central file becomes weaker. One way of playing the position will be to play p5 plus 1. Now, at this point in time, it would be advisable for black to play the advisor. Sorry about the pun. Now, black should not jump the gun thinking that he could gain material with this cannon pin. Because if he did, red would simply play r9 plus 1 to develop his chariot, choosing to sacrifice the horse, which if black accepted, red would then play h3 plus 5. Now this will become a pseudo sacrifice because this cannon is now completely surrounded. It cannot move here, it cannot move here, and would be prone to capture by the red horse. While in the meantime, red would have developed a chariot, threaten this horse, and also be prepared to push the pawn across the river. So red would have made significant gains on both attack and defense. That is why it would be better for black to defend his position with a4 plus 5, h7 plus 5 to attempt an attack from the central file, e3 plus 5 to further consolidate the central file. And at this point in time, red would now finally capture the pawn to pressure the black horse. Now this would mark the start of his attack. Now, would it be a good idea to start attacking from the central file? The answer would be no, because this would give black the opportunity to play c6 plus 1 to dislodge this red chariot. And once c6 plus 1 was played, black could then continue to capture the central pawn, and black's defense would be very formidable, and red would not be able to crack its defense for the time being. So black gets to alleviate some pressure, and this would be a good thing for black. So r6 equals to 7. Black would then retreat his cannon, which is a commonly used tactic in similar situations, whereby if the horse is protected by another piece, usually a cannon, black will retreat the other cannon, preparing to traverse it, c2 equals to 3, to attack the chariot. Now red would now take the time to push the central pawn forward. Black does as planned. Red moves the chariot out to safety. And after sacrificing the central pawn, red would have the initiative at hand, because now red would have doubled down the pressure on this file, preventing the development of this black's right chariot. There is an attack going on in the central file. The red horses have much room for development and also good lines for development also. So red would have the initiative. So this would mark the end of variation 1. Now in variation 2, black, instead of playing c5 equals to 6, black would play c2 plus 2. Now this would be the best counter for black in this situation. So if p7 plus 1 were played to prevent c2 equals to 3, this would be the recommended move. It would not be a good idea to capture the pawn at now, because the cannon had moved away, black could now protect the horse in this manner. p7 plus 1, and after p7 plus 1, the space that this chariot can move in this file would be decreased, and black would now retreat his cannon. Although he would have wasted one move, but he will be compensated with c2 equals to 3 to attack, to place a lot of pressure on this file. So black would have a very flexible formation, and he could be very satisfied with this situation. So that is why p7 plus 1 is advocated instead of capturing the pawn directly. And since red did not capture the pawn, c2 plus the riverbank cannon could now attack the other horse in this manner, threatening to capture it. So in the book, h7 plus 8 was played, so that the cannon would now protect the red horse and will still prevent the black chariot from being developed. Now in this situation, black will now offer the pawn as a pseudo sacrifice. Now this is quite a delicate and exquisite move with far-reaching implications. It would not be a good idea to trade material at this point in time, because after trading material, although black would be able to develop his chariot, red would simply move his horse back to protect the central pawn, and all of a sudden the cannon will now take aim on this file. So black's other horse black would place the predicament, because after retreating, red would now be prepared to play r6 equals 7, and this horse would also be placed under a lot of pressure. So c6 plus 7 is not advocated. So pseudo sacrifice, red accepts. After the pseudo sacrifice, black would now double down and play r8 equals to 3, such that the weakness of this horse would now be covered up. Now red would develop his chariot in this manner, trying to offer a trade of material, trade of chariots. And at this point in time, it would be advised for black to capture the central pawn. Now this would be the perfect time to do so. Now it would not be a good idea to try to play r2 plus 4 at this point, because red would now simply retreat his cannon. After all, the horse was still protecting the red chariot, and red would now be prepared to play c5 equals to 7 to add a lot of pressure on this file. So red would have a significant advantage if allowed to do so. And if c5 plus 4 were played, red cannot retreat his cannon and be forced to move advisor. And at this point in time, black will now simply link the chariots up, because this line is simply too important to be given up. So at this point in time, it will be a nearly even situation for both colors. Okay, a short recap. I've chosen to present the recap with black at the bottom, so that we can see the opening system in the eyes of black. So central cannon, rank chariot versus file chariot. Now red would start to attack, r1 equals to 6. Riverbank Chariot is now the recommended way. Another one would be to play a6 plus 5. Red would develop his horse as a purple horse. Black would also do likewise. And this would be a theme or topic of discussion whereby Red would push his chariot across the river to start attacking this flank. Now there were two main variations, c5 equals to 6 and c2 plus 2. c5, the old ways of playing r8 equals to 3 or even e3 plus 1 are not advocated. So if c5 equals to 6 for variation A, after giving up the central file, Red would now charge attack from the center. Developing, c6 plus 5 is not a good idea. Red would now attack from central file, but would have to consolidate its defense, and Red would now attack the horse. Cheating, and Red will now double down the pressure. We can see that the pressure on Black at this point in time is significantly greater. Variation B, which is perhaps the better variation for Black in this situation, will be to play c2 plus 2. b7 plus 1, attacking the other horse, and Red defends in this manner. p3 plus 1 as a pseudo sacrifice is advocated instead of capturing the cannon immediately. So after trading material, Black would have covered up his weakness of this horse. Red will now try to trade chariots, and Black would simply play c5 plus 4 to deliver a check, and another advantage of doing so would be the black elephants could now be linked. And Red would simply double down on insist on keeping the chariot on this file. So this will result in a nearly even situation for both colors. So I hope you've enjoyed this short video. This is one of the most popular opening systems, and certainly a very ancient one that everybody needs to know. So if you like the work that I've been doing, please do subscribe to my channel and give me a thumbs up for this video. Thank you.